This is Chris. You're on Reality Shadow Band. Sorry, I was messing with that portal I bought off of Alibaba, and I can't seem to get it off the wall. So I just have to deal with it for now. Anyway, so this episode we're going to be going into example 6: public miseducation and unfireable teachers. I'm not sure if anybody's been keeping up with current events and stuff, but like our public education school is basically child abuse at this point. So anyone that still is sending their kids to this thing, please stop. It's not good for them. It's abusive and it's horrible, and it's destroying their brains. So I don't know how you feel about Charlie Kirk. I like Charlie Kirk some things, other things I'm not. He's like still into the political side of things. Like there's a solution there and there's not. But anyway, he brings up some good points with this teacher.
Hi, so I just wanted to know what your take was on, you said with education to fire the bad teachers. What's your definition of bad teachers?
Great question. So how many people here think you've had at least one teacher that deserves to be fired? Everyone raises their hand. Always. So the question is, how do you find them, right? So I got this question asked a lot. Here's the interesting thing. So when President Obama was running for president in 2008, one of his big things, he said it over 40 times, was that we need to have a system that rewards good teachers and fires bad ones. But the question is always, how do you find the bad ones? So is it test scores? Probably not. Is it, peer evaluation? The best metric is you have teachers grade teachers and you have parental input. Here's the thing. You know the really, really bad teachers. Those have got to go. I had teachers earning $150,000 a year, barely showing up for class.
So this is fair use. Go give Charlie Kirk over there at Turning Point like, subscribe, even just out of pity. He is at least bringing up these points and talking about them in public and taking on people who are obviously completely unaware of what's going on in the public schools, or is a part of the public schools and doesn't want their cushy job threatened.
Teaching gym, doing nothing. I had teachers earning $150,000 a year, barely showing up for class, teaching gym, doing nothing, being completely lazy. They're a drain on the school budget, they're a drain on the local community, and they should be fired instantaneously. The problem is, under current teacher tenure laws in certain states, in most states, they are protected by contracts designed by teacher unions that make it nearly impossible to fire bad teachers. If they're not productive, they don't put time in. So I would support reform and a system that allows really good teachers. Here's the thing.
Yeah, see, this is the part I have to say, Charlie, no. That's the head fake. That's always they identify the problem and they head fake it into their own agenda. And I'm sorry. Just get your kids out of these schools. Whatever you have to do, whatever paperwork you have to file, whatever okay stamp you have to get, even if you don't need an okay stamp, these people are abusing your children.
Teachers, this might be a surprise to some of my liberal counterparts. So I had public school teachers that changed my life, that did unbelievable amount of work. They got in at 6 a.m. every day. They worked their tail off. Then I had teachers that would take half the year off. They just didn't care.
Yeah, so I had maybe 1.5 of those throughout my entire schooling of 18 years, however long I went through the schooling. 1.5, really?
They were
These people need to stay away from our kids. That's what the deal is. These people are not. They don't have your kid's best interests at heart. They are indoctrinating your kids. They are miseducating your kids. They are telling them to concentrate on things that don't matter, and the things that do matter, they're saying don't matter. So that's a miseducation. And I'll get into in the second part after this video, Charlotte Iserbyte. This is all deliberate. This isn't by accident. It's like, oops, sorry, whoops. No, this is on purpose to create, as Carlin says, smart enough to run the machines, but too dumb to figure out who's telling them, giving the orders, and why.
They worked their tail off. Then I had teachers that would take half the year off. They just didn't care. They were bratty. They thought it was horrible. And yet the one that didn't put in as much effort was earning more than the person that was just there. That is not the way that we should reward, I believe, teachers in this country. Teachers are modern day heroes. I'm very, very pro-teacher, very anti-teacher union. So
yeah, okay, I'm the same. But what we have inside these public indoctrination camps, it's a jobs program for liberal students who can't get a job in the real world and don't have any experience outside of academia. It's a jobs program. It's a government jobs program. That's all it is.
I think that
It's babysitting as well, so they can employ the other half of the population by shuffling off these kids for 12 years while women go back into the workplace and try and work for a man that and then get taxed on it. Oh yeah, that's real smart. And kids obviously are the mental health crisis. Don't say therapy. I will ban you if you say. Go ahead, say therapy in the comment section. I will ban you. You can still watch me and have to piss you off, but yeah, no. Therapy has failed. Psychiatry is failed. Psychology is failed. These are all mislabeled institutions. These are mislabeled things. I'm not even sure what they are. They may have had some sort of semblance of reality at some point, but it's far beyond that now. So anyway, I'll keep going.
believe teachers in this country. Teachers are modern day heroes. I'm very, very pro-teacher, very anti-teacher union. So I think that's the big distinction. So,
What about professors?
professors?
Yeah, like
That's,
college, at the
well,
college
that's,
level.
I believe this similar thing. I think that we currently have a system that rewards professors that want to write their book and sell it back to their class.
Yeah, talk about grift. These college professors with their books. Major grift.
I think that's it's a fair point. It's also rewards professors that do most studying and not actually engaging with their current class. Here's the problem: is that most college freshmen are taught by TAs, teachers' assistants. So they're getting something. They're paying for something they're not even getting.
So there's more mislabeling. You're expected to go get taught by these these professors who are tenured, whatever. They've been studying this material and have also made it their life work to communicate this material. That's what a professor does. He professes. He doesn't just study and yeah. Hello. So that's another mislabel and a grift.
I think measuring value in a professor should be different than that of a teacher. But here's the big difference: is that public school teachers in K through 12 education have to be held to a different standard than professors. It just has to be. There's more K through 12 teachers than there are professors, a lot more, almost 10-to-1 ratio.
Okay, but with the whole point on the TAs, they're usually doctoral students
Yes.
that are turning into professors. So
Right, and they have no experience in actually doing their thing outside of academia. So this is the same problem these boot camps and these course camp places have. They are mostly using people who just went through the class as the teacher's assistants. So they're using the same model. It does not work. These people have no experience in the real world. They may know the technical details of some of this stuff, but they don't know how it's all put together or why or what. It's bad. This is why we are going to have a competency crisis that will end this whole thing, this whole crazy mess of thinking that you can just get away with living in fantasy world. The competency crisis that is hitting America now, it will change all this. People will have to go back to reality, and this fanciful thinking, like you can live in this utopian society and don't have to worry about reality, is going bye-bye.
So why is that a problem? How are the TAs supposed to
Because when you start to have class sizes that are 500 people and plus, when you have TAs that are not yet masters on the subject that you're paying a pretty penny on, that deserves question.
Yeah. So you're paying for someone who basically just learned it and they're regurgitating it to you without really understanding fully how this stuff works. And you're paying top dollar for this. Scam.
You are going to college.
Let me put the alert out. The red alert. Oh shit. Here we are. Where is it? Come on. Here's that stupid thing. Here we go. All right, I can get better at that damn thing. Okay, keep going.
College to learn from subject matter experts in an environment where you can dive deep into that particular topic, so on and matter experts. In Penion, that deserves question. When you have TAs that are not yet masters on the subject that you're paying a pretty penny on, that deserves question. Because you are going to college to learn from subject matter experts in an environment where you can dive deep into that particular topic, so on and so forth. So if I'm paying, or I'm being forced to pay $800 for this sociology class or human studies class, and I'm getting taught by a TA with 800 people in a lecture hall this big, that there's something I think wrong with that. I think because you're paying a pretty penny for something that is then very, I would say, inadequate.
I mean, at that point, what is the difference between that and YouTube? What's the difference between that and YouTube? Really? You get a paper at the end that nobody cares about? That means basically a high school diploma, what meant in 1995 or 2001. Stop. Okay, so this is Charlotte Iserbyte, and she wrote a book called Deliberate Dumbing Down of America, and I'll let the introduction happen here, but basically she worked for the Reagan administration, and she discovered that the educational system is not what people think it is, and it's designed to do something different, which is the mislabel, right? So it's not education; it's indoctrination into statism and also jobs program. So there's got there's always multiple tenets coming together. So you got a jobs program for these college students that can't get any work, are not able to work anywhere else, and really too smart to be. They want to capture them, and because they're smart enough to do some damage at some point. So they're basically given a post in the system that doesn't look like a post in the system, and they're no threat to the system either. So there's multiple prongs of things coming together, and this is all taken out on the children. The children are the ones that suffer, and the parents too, because they're told that these things are good for their kids, and that things are going to be great afterwards. And for the top 10%, that's fine. But for the bottom 90%, it's a nightmare. The society is a nightmare if all you have is a high school education, because you've been heavily indoctrinated into bullshit that don't matter after you leave the pristine environment of high school. And that's why you see these like high school bullies and high school cheerleader. If you go back to like I have seen the damage that's done that I see photographs of the high school reunions. Man, these people. I'm sorry, if you're doing well in high school, that means you are nearly destined for failure, and drug addiction and all kinds of weird problems is bad. So thankfully, if you were a nerd in high school and you just eke through and you're like, what the hell was that? You're doing better off usually. All right, I'm gonna get into here we go.
Today I chose about.
I'm gonna leave links for all this stuff in below, of course. And I'm rambling. Go ahead.
The public educational system. And our guest is Charlotte Iserbyte. She's a former U.S. Senior former advisor for the Department of Education. And she wrote a book called The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. Welcome, Charlotte.
Thank you very much.
So did I get that right? You were a former senior advisor.
Senior policy advisor, and it's the U.S. Department of Education.
The U.S. Department
under
of Education.
President Reagan.
Okay.
So this is from a cable access show, low budget. You're not going to hear about this on any of the mainstream news. But this woman actually worked for the government and tried to improve educational, and she found out.
Hey, glad to get that straightened out. The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. Why did you write this book?
I started researching education in the early 70s after having returned from Europe. Overseas, actually, I'd been in the Foreign Service for at least 18 years. Some of that was spent after I got married and living in Belgium with my husband, but I lived abroad for pretty much 18 years. And I came back to the United States and put my children in public school in Camden, Maine. And I was absolutely shocked to see what was happening. And I don't think I was alone. That good public school teachers, older teachers, were also very shocked at the things that they were being required to do.
Yeah, so I grew up in Maine during this era, and I definitely felt something odd was happening, the way the teachers were acting. They had just kind of implemented some of this stuff right when I was getting into junior high school. So I saw their reactions to things. They were very unnerved about what they were being asked to do. And that was the early stages of it. And then I saw another stage of it, a later stage, where the state actually came in and said, no, we're doing standardized tests. That happened in Maryland, which is outside DC. I went to high school there. My parents were in the military, so I moved around every 4 years. So I got to see all this shit and see how different states handle these things. Maine was doing it, trying to do their best, but because of the super hardcore liberal bias, they had to go full commie. And this is what Charlotte had discovered.
And I kept asking questions such as, one very interesting little exercise that was in the New Social Studies textbook, which was called, World of Mankind, published by Follett, was for the teacher to take the little tots in first grade through town, whatever town it is in the United States, wherever, and ask them to identify the houses in town, the big houses and the little houses. And what do you think they eat in the big house? What do they eat in the little house? And I thought, what is
point
this?
Being?
This is, to create the class system, class warfare, really. And I knew that because I'd lived in socialist countries, so I thought, what is going on here? So I went to the school board meeting, not realizing that I was going to be, I caused quite an uproar, and they hauled me up the flagpole as a censor because I said, what does this have to do with education? I don't really understand. And I realized then that things had changed. And so then I began to check on other things other than social studies, and I saw that they were planning on easing out the grammar. They were planning on getting rid of A, B, C, D, all these things that were quite traditional and had worked very well. You know, the audience has to understand that the United States had the finest education system in the world until probably 1960. And so all of a sudden, and I went out of the country in when did I leave? 1953. And so I left when we had this great system of education. And
because
so,
they were sticking with the basics.
Oh, yes.
They were teaching people how to read, how to write,
That's right.
how to do research.
Yes.
And then you come back, and all of a sudden, instead of focusing on the
Oh, yes.
basics, they're taking kids down the street and saying,
Yes.
well, what do the people in this big
Yes.
house eat? What do the people in this
That's
small?
right.
And the point, but what was the point that they would tell the citizens? Not class warfare.
Well, that's a very good point you're making. It is, they would say, well, this is a world of mankind. You know, the children have got to understand that there are all different groups of types of income, people who are poor, people in other countries, and later on they were even having the children eating rice for breakfast. And a lot of, the audience saw this. They'd have the children role-playing starving children in Ethiopia or wherever. This is to change their values. The whole purpose of this kind of education, which really is socialization, it's I call it socialism education, really, redistribution of wealth, etc., is to change our children through the schools so that they will be very comfortable living in a socialist world management system. And
So that's what we're in. That's what we're going into. That's what most people have no idea. This is why things are the way they are. Why don't we have any rights? Why do we have all this stuff? Why is there no border? It's because they don't know any different. They don't know any different. They don't know what they're losing. They don't know what they've given up, and they don't know what they're entering into. So I will leave links to all this stuff. I'll let her listen to this whole amazing interview with Charlotte Iserbyte, where she breaks it all down very eloquently and lets you know what's going on. And this is a national treasure, this lady. She's unique. There's nobody else doing this. And it's a huge problem. And it's not going to stop. There is no legislation that will stop this. This is the system working as intended. The only thing you can do is leave it. This is Reality Shadow Ban. I'm Chris, and we'll keep on going on this series because there's a lot of stuff like this. And if you haven't seen all the areas, I'll touch on them all so we can maybe get back to some freedom at some point. I don't know.